that the people he's detaining are going to feel like it's a traumatic.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It requires both people to understand the situation.
Because he's the one enforcing the law.
Yeah.
You're going to get a reaction. You just don't know what you're going to get.
Oh, of
you're
course.
hoping you get your reaction of patience and calm. I'm hoping to deal with that, but I can't expect.
For the human nature and the fact that, again, people, you're going to deal with an average individual who's probably going to be a little neurotic, who's probably going to overreact a little bit. And, you know, so you as an officer who's handling that situation, you're going to have higher patience than an average individual and higher tolerance than an average individual. And you should have higher intelligence in that situation to understand and to know. But again,
I know.
Again, it's not like that in the work field. All right, and I'm live over here.
Perfect.
All right, well, Raw Wilkes, this is another episode of AR Media Institute podcast. I'm Mr. Rembrandt, you're Raw Wilkes, and we'll go ahead and get into it. For all the listeners, you can listen on all major podcast platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and many other platforms. You just Google AR Media Institute and it'll pop up. Also, you can watch the podcasts on AR Media Institute YouTube channel. The episodes will be there, especially clips will also be on there. And for exclusive episodes not available on the free podcast platforms, you can go over to patreon.com/AR Media Institute and get exclusive and bonus episodes there. Also ad-free episodes there. Any episodes downloaded on the free podcast platforms may or may not have ads, because we need your support for viewers to keep this going, and to continue on and have better quality and more opportunities for the future. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So Raw, go ahead and give me the breakdown of what we just started briefly getting into, and to catch the viewers up, and then we'll just go from there, and we'll just segue and go from there.
All right, perfect. All right, so let me just get real quick, just a quick tidbit of information, just real quick, just to get a
if you could,
just a timeline.
You're fine right there the way you look.
All right.
But if you could just move it away from you a little bit more, would be better, more than less. Okay. Yeah, that way.
Sometimes I was trying to make sure my audio.
Your audio, okay, you're good.
Yeah, that was. Is it? You think it's?
No, your audio sounds perfect.
Okay, perfect. All right. So let's see. All right, cool. So say Monday. Okay, cool. So I got it. All right, cool. All right, we're good to go. So if I'm good here, we're all set.
Yep.
All right, so basically just to give a quick overview of what we were talking about earlier. So we were discussing about the incident that happened in Virginia Beach, Lynnhaven Mall, where a incident occurred at the food court where an African-American male fit a description of a reported individual, I guess that was either, stealing credit cards or something of that nature at the mall. And police were looking for a suspect that fit a description of a black male with dreads. that basically was, skimming credit cards. So anyway, in the pursuit and looking for the suspect, they came into the mall, Lynnhaven Mall, Lynnhaven Mall, and then saw somebody that fit description. And I guess there's a video going viral online, approximately 5 minutes, where obviously we don't know what happened prior to the video, but according to the individual that was recording, the woman, which was the wife of the man, said that the second the officer came, about 5 seconds after that, she started recording. So she said that she pretty much got the entire, according to her, they got the entire video of the whole situation.
They got the whole video of the guy?
Yeah, well, no, the whole video of when the cop approached. The second he started intervening and talking to him about whatever is when she started recording. So she's trying to say that people were saying that, well, what happened before the recording? She said nothing. The recording started the second that the cop engaged.
I got you.
That's what she's saying, is saying that I literally start recording maybe 5 seconds after he walked up to us. So that's where she's saying that she has got pretty much the whole start to finish. Not like there was a start and then you got the middle. Because I remember actually seeing that, she's actually been pretty vocal online about that.
Right.
So anyway, just so the video is about 5 minutes and it shows he's in the mall with his 2 kids. That's right. Yeah. He's in the mall with his 2 kids. I don't know if it was 2 or 3, but 2 kids and his wife just having dinner. And the cop comes up and I guess immediately starts to put his hands behind his back, according to one of the video I saw. Put the hands behind his back and starts basically cuffing him. And at that point, they start, like anybody, what's going on? Can we, tell us what's going on? So the cop initially says, he doesn't really say much and he just asks them, do you drive a black truck? So he kind of just starts asking questions like, hey, do you drive a black truck? Like, no, we don't even own a black truck. We don't drive a truck. And then, of course, then it comes into him. He starts getting agitated very quickly and tells them, like, hey, what's going on? And the cop is not being super direct, but is not really kind of telling him exactly what's going on from the video. And the individual is getting irate, says, hey, can you just take me outside? Let's just go outside because you're doing this in front of my kids. I mean, really in front of my kids. So he's like, can we just go outside? And then they, handcuff him, take him outside. And that's when the video gets more aggressive because then he starts yelling, starts making I guess you could call it a scene. He's frustrated. So they take him outside. They start trying to explain to him what's going on, saying that, hey, that we had a description that fit you. You fit the description, whatever. The cop at this point now is being calm. But what people are having the problem with is the fact that it's just the fact that they just can't wrap their head around that it is what it is. It's a person that's just having a normal day. And he just unfortunately had to deal with police encounter when he wasn't even trying to deal with it in general. So that's where the whole problem is where people are just, the narrative, I'm having a normal day, I'm eating lunch with my family, my wife and kid, and then now I have a dramatic experience with a white officer, period. That's kind of the point blank, period. And then he goes outside, he ends up getting released, he says a couple words, he tells the cop, fuck you, fuck off me, calls him whatever. The cop understands, he says, I understand, I'm sorry, I apologize. And then they kind of went their separate ways. And that's just the synopsis, just went their separate ways.
Right.
And they said basically, and that's when the video after that got posted and it pretty much went viral like that.
Yeah, so what's your breakdown on it?
My breakdown was, my ultimate breakdown was just in general, in my opinion, is that you're coming from my concept of being able to connect to the community in a way that maybe he couldn't. I would say that based on what I've saw, I would even look him as a suspect. Not saying I just would have not looked at him as immediate suspect based on what they were looking for, based on his behavior and based on what was going on at that particular time, having lunch with his children. That just doesn't look at somebody to me in the mall stealing credit cards, regardless if he fit the description or not. Because all the description was a black male with dreads wearing black. Because at the same time in that video, they actually had cops down on a certain angle detaining another subject in the video across the way, talking to another guy that had dreads that was wearing black. And just in my opinion, I just don't seem like that that person. Obviously I was right, because obviously he wasn't the suspect. So obviously my assumption would have been right, because it just nothing to me would have told me that he was the crime that was allegedly they were looking for. I would have never expected him to do it. It ended up being a guy that owns a business anyway. He owns a business. He runs a business. Him and Wright runs a business together. So they're actually, I wouldn't, in terms of success, successful individual, just at least law-abiding citizens in general. So yeah, I guess at the end of the day, they just felt embarrassed because these are people that they got a following. A couple of people we know follow this individual. They're friends with them. So there's a little bit of mutual friends in this area, because they're obviously from this area and they're about our age. But I would have never did it. I feel like I would have been able to just identify based on just the behavior going on and the crime that was being challenged, that this doesn't look like a person that would have committed a crime. Even though you can't judge that, I wouldn't just not went off straight off just dreads, black, that's it. I would need a little bit more evidence. And then just going into a crowded mall and doing that, I think there was a way to handle it maybe a little bit better to keep him calm, because obviously him getting irate at the same time, who's the professional? Let's say he's not the professional, the cop's the professional. So you got to kind of, if it gets out of control, I wish I was in that situation. That's all. Because I feel like I would have never been able to, it would never got that extreme. You know what I'm saying? I feel like there was a disconnect. Watching the video feels like there's a disconnect of how I should handle this and what I need to say and how I need to say it to be able to get your point across, but also in the way of not also offending the individual in front of his family. Because that was the part that I think bothered me too, is that I'm a man, I got my wife and my kid, I want to protect my wife and kid, but at the same time getting detained. There's a mental part there that's bothersome. If you're a strong man with values, what I'm saying? It looked like he was, because he kept bringing his kid up, like, bro, in front of my child, you're doing this in front of my child, in front of my wife. Because he kept saying that repeatedly in the video.
Yeah. So getting the way it was handled in front of his family, right, it is an issue. Him appearing not to be an individual who would commit a crime, especially given what he was doing when they found him, and in the scenario and the situation he was in when they found him, didn't appear to be a situation of somebody who just committed a crime. Is what you're saying, and you feel like, based upon the situation and what you know and how you handle things, it could have been handled in a better. You would have never handled it that way. You believe you could have handled it in a better situation.
Yes, because I feel like if I handle it the way I'm considering it, it wouldn't be national attention. Because as a police department, it's not what you do, it's also what does it. It's also what doesn't get reported. Yeah. In a sense, like obviously police is doing stuff every day, right? But it's the certain things that get national attention is what you don't want. Yeah. The fact that it went national, it went national. It's like now you put the police chief. It's embarrassing to the department, regardless if you agree or not. It is what it is, because now we're a divided country. Yeah, but are things being put in the national attention because they're wrong? Or is it because it's a narrative that people like to watch, like TV shows? It could be. Oh yeah, it could be. It's no question the media, the news is definitely because once that person started recording, if the officer just would have said, oh man, you know what, you're fine, just have a nice day, and they put it online,
it still could have been white officers harassing black person.
Or it could have been, I'm recording. Let me be able to give my opportunity to do this where it's just it's smooth and transparent as possible, to where now, because there are recordings that don't get no attention because nothing happened.
Yeah.
Where
that are online, that are not viral. Probably more so than a lot, because I'm pretty sure people are trying to record a lot to just get something. Right.
So I was just saying, watching it, and again, it's just how you could have treated him as a person, because he wasn't putting up no fight. He's not trying to, not cooperate. He wasn't doing any of those things. So there was more times that I felt like you could have just had a conversation with the individual.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you had a buddy and a backup. It wasn't like he was solo. He had another person in the video that also was part of. It looked like he was undercover because he was wearing street clothes. The other officer looked like he was wearing regular clothes.
But the result was definitely, at the end, he wasn't taken to jail. The cuffs came off, and the officer apologized.
Yeah, to simplify. Yeah, absolutely. Just to put in simple terms. Yeah, that was it. Pretty much, he had a little. They had. I'm not gonna get into the words he said. They had a little. He was obviously agitated, so he said some words. Right. Words were said. Anger was definitely on his side, and the cop did remain calm. Yeah, right. He remained calm, and he pretty much took the energy he was giving him and didn't really feed into it. Didn't feed it, and just was basically saying, "I understand your frustration." Was trying to tell him to calm down. Of course, he was like, why the fuck should I calm down? Right. Excuse my language. That's to put it in quotes. There's no reason for me to calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. I was calm when I was eating dinner or lunch with my family, my wife. Right. I was calm until you showed up. And again, if you're, and the problem is, we have to ask the question, which he said, this is not the first time. So sometimes people might see a person outlash and then like, well, why is outlash? Why he can't stay cooperative? At the same time, it's not his first rodeo. Yeah. Yeah. It's not his first rodeo. It might be his first. It might be your first time watching this, but not being the person that in that situation might not be able to sympathize and empathize what he's going through because you're never in the situation. Right.
No, I mean that's all of that is extremely reasonable. I mean, it is what it is. And remind me, I want to show you something later. Just remind me. I want to show you something later that occurred. But so at least the most positive aspect about this is that at the end of the day, they figured out it wasn't him, and he wasn't arrested unjustly, and it didn't escalate beyond a situation that came deeper than words. Because at the end of the day, the way I am as a person, words mean nothing. Who cares about words? So what if he's saying F you, you guys are pigs? It doesn't matter. Officers at the end of the day are trained to be called that every single day. So regardless, he's being called a name. The guy's expressing his emotions, and that's fine. And people express their emotions differently all the time. Some people, things are said and things happen, and some people, they're unaffected and they're calm like how we are now. And then some people will just start screaming and breaking things, and the cameras would be broke. So that's just how some people interact with different situations. So the problem is the system always wants the situation to be in favor of the system, because if they don't have it in favor of the system, they'll never have control. So while the public in a lot of situations, even minorities, might feel like officers or the law in general or the system in general has too much power, it makes them feel powerless, especially like maybe in this situation, he feels like there's too much power against him even though it turned out to be in his favor, was nothing more than just, questioning him, arresting, detaining him for a short period of time, uh, uh, which has to be, from my understanding, under 20 minutes. Anything more than 20 minutes, an actual official arrest has to be made. So they can only question you for 20 minutes before you actually have to be arrested or let go. That's why people are smart. It's like, well, really you should be calculating the time, and it's like after 20 minutes, you're like, is there anything else that you officers need from me? If not, I'm gonna go. If you're not gonna arrest me, then I'm gonna go. So anybody listening, that's just a word of wise, just so you know your rights, and so the officers are following rights, which they know that anyway. And it's different in different places, different cities, different states. But at the end of the day, see, the problem is, because officers do it all the time, they know that there's a lot of situations where they didn't want to put a person in a situation where they are making a person feel marginalized or accused of something they didn't do. And then next thing you know, the guy gets away and the officers are looking like idiots. And when somebody commits a crime, when you're a law enforcement and somebody commits a crime and the person gets away, that's like a doctor trying to help somebody and he dies on the table. It's like you feel like you didn't do your job, like you just let the whole world down, like you let your family down, you let everyone down. So at the end of the day, the officer probably feels like, so what if that guy felt offended? I apologize. It was an honest mistake. But at the end of the day, we made sure that a potential person who could have possibly committed a crime didn't get away. So while the public might not like that, and I agree it could have been handled better, the public has to understand, whether they want to or not, that the officers are doing their job to keep the community safe by any means necessary. And if it means offending you, then that's just something that you're going to have to deal with. But we just have to make sure that officers are being trained in a way and they're working on their skills in a way to where that is minimized and closer to zero than any other number, or from a scale from zero to 100. And the problem, as we know, is the fact that when it comes to ordinary jobs or even highly sophisticated jobs, ordinary people are doing them. Whether somebody working from a Fortune 500 company, somebody's a doctor. I mean, I'll show you some things later. Whether a person is a nurse or an officer, it's an ordinary person and mistakes are going to happen. So while he should have the intelligence and empathy and sympathy as a person and experience as a person to know, to be like, okay, I've seen this situation before, I know how it plays out. He should know that he doesn't. Not all the time, that person will not. And also, when it comes to those situations, we also sometimes are unfair. And I mean us, because we know that in a lot of situations, because we're always working on self-improvement, that we would not make certain situations in a lot of situations. And we could have done better. Meanwhile, a lot of people watching that think they could have done better and they wouldn't have. So that's just one thing, just to add on to that. But at the end of the day, it's a nothing burger in the sense that one person got a little upset and feels some type of way, and which was the person, and the officer at the end of the day was acting in good faith. He was acting in good faith, and he didn't get, from what I'm hearing, I didn't see the video, he didn't get overly aggressive and just say, well, once the guy started getting hostile, oh, well, I'm assuming you're trying to resist arrest. You're trying to get away. Let me know. And just take him to the ground and arrest him and just throw him in the back. And then now you have a whole another situation.
Yeah, he definitely didn't match his energy. The
Yeah.
um the number one thing I would say is that, and this is just you just, I'll ask you a question. If you're coming up to somebody to detain them, I just feel like there should be some level of communication, because if you really watch it, there's no communication. The communication of saying, and I don't know what you say, but to do something and not communicate it, it's like, what's happening? And that's why the individual woman recording is asking several times, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And there's like no definitive communication. And then that just causes people to start getting, agitated. Because it's like or it's like you go into the bank and you're trying to cash a check and it takes 15 minutes. And it's like the teller's not telling you, well, technically, sir, it's going to take a while because we got to run some, because of the large amount. We need to do X, Y, and Z. We got to send a report. It's going to take a few minutes. Sorry, for the inconvenience. Right there, at least that information gives me a level of, okay, I know what's going on. So that communication helps calm the situation down. So now I'm thinking about a million things. I might be thinking reckless in my head because I don't know what's going on. So I'm filling my thoughts up with probably something like you said. It's probably calm and it's simple, but you could at least said, hey, say, sir, you're not detained, you're not arrested. We have a description that fits your thing. We'll just real quick, we'll handcuff you for our safety and yours. Take you over here, ask you a few questions, and then we'll get our day. Remember, you're not arrested. We're not arresting you at this point. Or I don't know, and I'm just kind of freestyling. I'm not saying that's how how they're taught, but that little bit, of information, I feel like could have made it a lot easier, or at least you could have judged him like, okay, the cop did give an explanation, and he still got agitated or something. At least it would have looked a little bit better for the cop. But there was none of that. It was none of that. So it was kind of like stuff was happening fast. And it's like, again, at the same time, if he was a father, which I think he is, he's an older gentleman, he might have a wife or kid. That dynamic too should also be a little bit more, the fact that it is what it is. It was a family environment at that point.
Yeah.
So you got to be mindful of that too, because that's an extra. I get it. It doesn't have to be, but it is. It is what it is, because the fact that that's there, people are just going to use that, because family is very strong. Family is a very big thing in a lot of people. A lot of people will die for their family at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So the family dynamic being there and it seeming like it was not there and how it was handled is probably why a lot of people do it, because people look at it how it would be if it was my family and that was my husband or that was my dad and that situation happened. So that's where a lot of the reading some of the comments, that's where a lot of people are really upset about, as if it, and of course there's always the narrative, would it happen to somebody else in a different demographic?
Yeah.
Would he have done the same thing to another family that fit description, that had a wife and daughter and kids, and the subject happened to be white and he's white? Would have been the same, would have been handled the same way? And that's always gonna be a question mark.
Right.
But yeah, that was just my thought of just how he could have questioned it. Just give him some information, bro. That's all I asked. Just tell me what's going on, tell me what I need to do, and explain it in a calm, collective manner. And then we can get this done. And give me some, like, this will be done quick.
Yeah, so when it happened, the officer didn't explain. Well, I mean, at some point the officer said you fit the description, but it wasn't sooner than later. Huh?
Until they got outside until they got out of the food court.
So they got out of the food court. They got out of the food court.
So they kind of came up to him, and from the video, he's already arrested him, putting his hands behind his back. And according to her, she's saying that video started as soon as that happened. As soon as that altercation happened, and we started just coming up to him like, hey, sir, can you put your hands behind your back?
Yeah. From working before as a bartender and a waiter and whatnot, what I noticed is that in situations where you expect people to be smart, they're not, and you have to manage them. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is that if there's a situation where like that, where somebody doesn't know what's going on, to think that he's going to be calm and just be patient and go through the process like the officer is expecting him to do, or when you're in a restaurant, for example, and you have a hostess come to you and say, just hold on for a sec, we'll try to find you a table. And then 10, 15, 20 minutes go by. Now you're angry instead of being calm and just knowing that, hey, they're going to find you a table, or they're taking a long time to make your food, or taking a while to get your drink. And instead of just saying, hey, just getting an update on what's going on or whatever with our situation, is everything good? Instead of doing that, usually the people acts out with anger because they're impatient, they're neurotic, and they need people to keep them in the loop and to manage them. People have a hard time managing themselves, especially in situations like they feel like they don't have control. So in that situation where he feels like he doesn't have control, there is an element where constant communication helps to calm the individual down. I've noticed that working also alongside other people in the legal area. When it comes to anything, somebody getting sued, they want to be up to date. Somebody in the courtroom, they want to be up to date. Somebody incarcerated in the jail, they just want to know constantly what's going on, so they feel like they're in the loop. Even though things are being worked on, things are being processed, and it's not going to make it faster. It's not going to make it faster and or better and or easier, but they just want the information. And, when it comes to people like us, and I understand that, like me, I already know that there's a process, and I'm an extremely patient person, but everybody who's around me, I just heard it the other day that, oh my God, you are just such a patient person. It's like, yeah, because the more conscientious you are, the more intelligent you are, the more better you are about things, the more patient you become. Some boxers, they still get nervous before every fight, and then some boxers, they never get nervous before a big fight because they've been there before, they've seen it before, they have multiple belts, and they feel like they're going to confidently go in there and knock the guy out. So it's just, a lot of people are neurotic. A lot of people are average to below average individuals, and they want to be put in the loop. So those situations, to conclude it, and then we'll move on to something else. If the problem that you named, or not really problems, but just things that could have been improved, those will never be improved, because they'll never be improved. Because the fact of the matter is, in that field of work, means that you only have to have people who have our intelligence, which is not possible. Not in any job, you're just going to have 100% of the people who have our intelligence, because I would have handled that different too. But I have higher intelligence than that guy. And the officer didn't handle it bad, but he could have handled it better. Right?
Right. He didn't handle it.
And then the guy with the dreads in the situation, he didn't handle it good, and he didn't handle it bad. He could have handled it better.
Reacted.
He could have handled it better. He reacted. Yeah. So you have a situation where two individuals both could have handled it better to make the situation better for both of them, and the end result wind up being a decent result. But that's just never going to change. The only way it changes is if, in situations like that, the community, the public, whether it's a minority or a white or a Hispanic person, they're just completely calm to the process, which I would be, because I know the chances of you getting convicted, charged, or getting in trouble or going to jail for something you didn't do is less than 1%. And the fact that for a law enforcement officer, the fact that the chance that you wrongly convict somebody to where they get sentenced in jail for arresting somebody on something that is frivolous is also less than 1%. So if both people are patient with the process, the end result will be what it was, which is he's innocent, he went on his way. And now, so how we go through that process will be a matter of opinion. And the government agencies are going to go through that process how they feel it's necessary to maintain order and to do things in a way where they are being firm, but not letting people get off on frivolous things. Because criminals get away with more things than you'll ever believe, because the system actually in a lot of ways benefits them. I remember a situation working with different people in the law field where a guy smuggled, for example, heroin into a jail facility, and he was giving it out to the guys, and a couple of the inmates in that particular facility almost died. Guess what happened to the guy who was giving out heroin? They know who it is. Nothing happened to him, because the way it happened in the situation is there's certain legal steps that you have to follow in order to charge somebody with something or convict somebody with something, and you're trying to build that in order for that process to happen. So it's going to cause that person being uncomfortable in order for the government to get there. But in some situations, it's like you can't even do it because the law supports them a lot of times more than it does the government agency. So in that particular situation, the guy got off. He brought in heroin. Guys are eating heroin. They're almost dying in the jail. And guess who would have got in trouble? That facility would have got in trouble, not the inmate. The public would. Yeah.
Real quick. I know you say you're gonna move on. Just one question. Because the cop in the video was a sergeant, so we'll assume he's got at least 15 years, give or take. He's obviously a sergeant, so he's a veteran. And back to your word process, because he's been in longer, he's been through many process, could be safe to assume that what's considered simplistic to him because of longevity is a process that I'm assuming this person should know how this works. Where he might have maybe not felt the need to explain something because of longevity of doing something day in, day out, is like, I'm just, like you said, I'm just going to go through the process. But at the same time, because of my longevity, something can be so easy to me. I don't really need to explain to this guy what's about to happen. I'm just going to do what needs to be happen. And then if he's gone, if he's not what we're looking for, we just let him go. Because of the fact that he has some time, because he has a lot of time on his belt. Because time is something that where over time you get so advanced in something or something so day to day that maybe it wasn't, and I'm just assuming maybe his veteran status, would it be safe to say that maybe he didn't feel the need to explain anything in a sense because of the fact that he probably knew what was going to happen in general as far as the outcome. But yeah. But on video, it looks bad. But they always ask yourself, some people don't know how they look until you video. So I always said to people, when I even met my job, so you really think you're good? Let's put you on video. I said, now the cops are on video. So there's certain things that they probably do that doesn't look good or bad, or looks good or bad, or whatever, until it's on video. Because a lot of, when I'm talking about any job, let's not take cops out of it. Let's just talk about your job. If we put you on video, would you be considered looking at yourself and say that you do an exceptional job at your particular,
Oh, me? Oh, me. Because people already tell me that I have extreme patience, extreme capabilities, and I'm extremely good at what I do. And from the position that I had before, how all the time they were trying to promote me and have evals that are exceptional all the time. Me, I would love to be on camera. Actually, I would prefer it because it's more proof of what a person is doing, but at the end of the day, again, me and you, and we're not being arrogant, but we have pride in self-developing ourselves, getting smarter, getting better, getting more intelligent, performing at a top level more than anything we do. But the average individual is not. The average individual, doesn't matter if they're on it for 10, 15 years. The average individual, they are at that higher ranked position because they put the time in, not necessarily because of their performance. They're going to get a good mark on their eval because they show up on time. They're going to get a good mark on their eval because they've been there 6, 7, 8, 10 years. They're going to get a good mark on their eval because they just do paperwork decently. They're going to get a good check on their eval just because they never made any huge mistakes. They're going to get an excellent check on their profile if they follow policy, whether the policy is a very good policy or it's a weak policy. If they're following it, that's another check. So there's a system in play, you know, and it's usually probably it's a liberal system at that, and it's made in a way that those individuals follow, and they will get promoted up the ladder for that. They won't get promoted up the ladder necessarily like how you do in sports, where it's performance. You win, you go up. You win, you go up. You're doing better than another person. You're knocking people out. You're scoring more points than the other person. You go up. You get the big money. And we know that you're the best. It's not like that in the work field, right? It's not. And that's why, for example, Ray Dalio, he in his business, Bridgewater Associates, they have complete transparency. They have videotape every conversation. They record every conversation. People get to vote on ideas that you have when it comes to investing or business. People get to vote on it. You get to see what people say on what they think and how they vote on what you say. Complete transparency. Somebody doesn't like what your investing style, your business style, you get to see it and you get to respond. And then at the end of the year, you get an eval on decisions and investment ideas that worked, and an eval on ones that didn't work, and how people see you in the business and how you perform. Complete transparency. Do they have that in the work field? No. So it is what it is. Like, that's why I said it'll never get better. It'll get microscopically better because individually, people are not going to get better. That situation, the public is not going to handle that situation in a better manner. Right. You're just going to have to do that to a more sophisticated individual who's going to be calm and just say, you know, listen, dear son, everything's going to be fine. They're going to figure it out. It's just some type of mistake. They'll figure it out. Everything's fine. But not him. Him is like, you're going to do this in front of my kid, my wife? Huh? You're going to do this? So he's not, he's more neurotic. And then the officer is going, yep.
Real quick, not to cut you, would you agree just in general, if you've never been arrested before, that it's a traumatic experience for people based on what the media gives people, that would there be some type of understanding that just detaining people is traumatic for people that don't involve in crime?
Absolutely.
So the officers just got to understand that you can't be stupid and understand that is just, it is what it is. For the average person, it's a traumatic, not a criminal that's in crime all the time. You'll know when you're dealing with a real criminal.
It's traumatic for criminals too. It's traumatic for criminals too, because
so that makes it even easier. That makes the narrative easier then. Then the cops should understand that every time you detain somebody, it's traumatic. So you got to understand emotions. Those emotions. So why even get upset when somebody gets loud or agitated? It's traumatic.
Yeah. I mean, from what you said, the officer didn't really get upset.
No, he didn't. No, he did. Yeah. I'm saying that he understood that he was.
Yeah.
He's the professional. He has to know that the people he's detaining are going to feel like it's a traumatic.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It requires both people to understand the situation,
because he's the one enforcing the law.
Yeah.
You're going to get a reaction. You just don't know what you're going to get.
Oh, of
you're
course.
Hoping you get your reaction of patience and calm. I'm hoping to deal with that, but I can't expect. Yeah. I actually should be expecting a traumatic person that might blow his top.
Yeah. No, I mean, yes. Some officers don't feel like they should get that response.
Yeah,
but yeah, right. You're right. It's not reality. For the human nature and the fact that, again, people, you're going to deal with an average individual who's probably going to be a little neurotic, who's probably going to overreact a little bit. And, so you as an officer who's handling that situation, you're going to have higher patience than an average individual and higher tolerance than an average individual. And you should have higher intelligence in that situation to understand and to know. But again,
I know.
Again, so that will always be a problem. So again, it takes officers that's one field different from other fields where you don't have to improve. Like as a cashier, you don't have to improve. You can just be mediocre and that's it. In most corporate jobs, you could just be mediocre, do the same thing for 20 years, and that's it. But an officer, a law enforcement job, or being a lawyer or a judge, you have to constantly check yourself, check the department, and worry about improving. And then people in general need to constantly check themselves, get smarter, and worry about improving themselves as individuals. 100%. And that will make society as a whole better. See, if we just point fingers, oh, it's always the cops' fault. It's always the cops, right? And then the law enforcement is like, well, it's always these demographics of people, or always these situations. So if we're just pointing fingers, nothing is going to get in betterment. It takes both the community, the public. Maybe the community needs education on what you need to do when you're approached by law enforcement. Officer, here's my ID. Here's this and that. Me and my family, we've been here for the last 2 hours. Here's my receipt. It has the time. Couldn't have been nowhere else. I've been here for the last 30 minutes. Here's the time. I'm pretty sure you could roll back the cameras. I've been sitting here for the last 30 minutes. Been here with my wife, my kids, family. You can go ahead and do what you got to do. If you want to step outside, I'm perfectly fine with that. My family can stay here. And the officer could handle it better too. Explain himself in a better manner. Listen, everything's fine. There's some crime going on in the mall. We just want to make sure everybody's safe. Supposedly, you fit the description of an individual where the situation possibly could have been you. Just want to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind. And if you don't mind, let's just go outside. That way we can step away from the family. We don't have to do this right here. But you're not under arrest or anything. Just step outside. There's more ways that,
Absolutely.
but so the good thing is, it worked. It panned out. It panned out.
They went the separate ways, and it's over. Unfortunately, it's the pressure of the media and the public.
Oh, it's disgusting.
He's probably gonna get demoted. It might be some form of demotion just because of the fact that they got a new police chief in from a city that, it is what it is. The city came from Cincinnati. His viewpoints are different.
Yeah.
And, he's apologized repeatedly to those individuals. And they're going to want something done because now it's got so much attention that you're almost pressured to do something, because if you don't do something, you're condoning it. And then the thing is like, again, to the cops' credits, like you got to be perfect when you're on camera. Now, everybody's job, you can do your job and be imperfect, but still get the job done. It's like, nope, not a cop. You got to be perfect once you're on camera.
Yeah.
Because now you got millions of people picking it apart. So to that credit, I do understand, but obviously you're not gonna get everybody to feel that way. So I understand to one degree. It's like he's in a place where he has to have perfection.
Yeah.
Because now, one little wrong thing, it's gonna be it's gonna be hyper focused.
Yes.
On that one part.
Yes.
He might have done his job for years correctly, and in that one instance, he might have not handled it best. But it is what it is. He kept himself calm, and it maybe, like you say, you could have tweaked some things, but it's probably not rule for him getting fired. It's not grounds for him getting fired. If anything, to play the game, maybe give him some days off, but not. I don't know if he'll get promoted, but that's what they want. Obviously, the public wants promotion, fire.
Yeah.
The public wants him to fire or demoted. Obviously, what's probably right just to give something would be just take some days off.
Yeah, right. And that department should make a public announcement saying that, listen, we're going to improve our education. We're going to use that as a case study and display it to the whole department on what we could do to get better. And because just firing them and just moving on does nothing. Does nothing for the community, does nothing for the department. It does nothing. All you're doing is bending your knees and using one hand and doing that for the public. Right. That's all. You're just stroking the ego of the narrative, and nothing's being embittered, nothing being solved. What I said was a much more impactful way to go about situation. Public education on how to deal with officers and police, and more education constantly improving in departments. That's the way you embetter that situation, not just, oh, you're fired. No, that doesn't do anything. That doesn't do nothing.
No, it does that.
But make the situation worse. because then now people don't want to be officers. And now when crimes happen, officers are just going to be like, oh, just let them go. Oh, just let them go. Wait, how much did he steal? 10,000? No, sorry, let him go. We can't risk our reputation for arresting somebody because they stole $10,000. Just let them go. See, and that will be the attitude. That will be attitude. Especially like in neighborhoods where officers are showing up on crime scenes where people are getting shot or stabbed, and the officers are taking it into their hands, and they might have to get violent to prevent other violence from happening. If they're not allowed to do that, officers are not allowed to use their weapons to prevent other situations. There'll be a time where officers will just say, well, all right, we'll let the communities take care of themselves, and we'll just show up and clean up the mess after after the situation is already over. We'll come out there with forensics and put the chalks on the ground after they've cleaned. We'll show up 45 minutes after the call, and we'll just show up with forensic and write chalk down and put the yellow around the neighborhoods and just clean up the mess. And we'll get a cleaner out there to do a wash down, and then we'll just we'll go from there.
That's where the politics come from. I remember knowing somebody from the inside when they used to have the big College Beach Week, which is now the big popular festival for college kids across the country. And I remember this one officer was saying, he said, we were told strictly from the police chief, it's not about how many arrests we make. It's about how many we don't make. So that way, when the event was over, we only had 2 arrests.
Yeah.
It's basically telling him, like how you said, just let shit go, let stuff fly, because sometimes it's not about that, hey, we arrested 600 people, that we're good officers, we're good police force. And actually, now the narrative is actually how many arrests you don't make.
Yeah.
And saying that we didn't have many crime, period.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Because it comes back down to it's not about just the job. There are narratives they have too.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of told, not directly, but indirectly, little stuff, don't even bother.
Yeah.
Don't bother. Because we're trying to have an event. This is big money. We got vendors. See what I'm saying? There's pressure.
Yeah.
I always realize that. And I'm sure it's like that in any major city when it comes to things like that. We can't just be arresting every little thing. We just gotta let stuff fly.
Yeah.
But anyway, you can go on for days on that subject, It's a very hot topic. But I agree with you say. It does take a higher level of 2 individuals. And of course, it would have been probably smooth if both were at that same capacity, because then it would have been easy. He would have probably even had his wife calm. Hey, he would have told his wife, it could have been like so calm that, honey, relax. Anybody, it just like you said, back to your point, if you're a calm, patient guy, no one's going to take you out of your character.
No. Nope.
No matter what the situation is, because you're going to be able to see right through it. But again, we can't use that as a basis for how every situation is going to be handled, though.
No.
Which you already said. Clearly said. It's
good. Well, that's gonna wrap up this episode of the AR Media podcast with Mr. Rembrandt and Raw Wilkes. Again, anyone listening to the podcast, you can listen on all major free podcast platforms: iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and etc. Also, if you want to get bonus episodes or exclusive episodes, ad-free episodes that are not available on the free podcast platform, you can go to patreon.com/ARMediaInstitute to get those episodes. And also, if you are watching this on youtube.com/ARMediaInstitute YouTube channel, watching this podcast through videocast, make sure that you hit the like button, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you share this content on your social media platforms. Share it on your Facebook page, share it on your Twitter, or share this on your Instagram. So Thanks for everybody tuning in, and see you on the next episode. That's a wrap. There's a lot of emotional information out there. If you want factual, epistemic information, make sure you hit the like button and make sure you subscribe to AR Media Institute. See you on the next video.